Good afternoon, boys and girls. Miss Quast here, today sharing a story continuing with our Earth Day theme called Greta and the Giants. And this story is inspired by Greta Thunberg's stand to save the world. And this is a young girl who's a little bit older than you are. And she was realizing that there was a forest around her home that was being ruined by some giants. And she wanted to make a change and say, enough's enough. We need to save our planet. So this is by Zoe Tucker and Zoe Persico. And although this is a fictional story, it's getting inspiration from a real life girl that's making a difference in the world today. And her sign says, strike for climate. And this boy's sign says, listen, Greta and the Giants. And the illustrations in this book are amazing. There was once a girl who lived at the heart of a beautiful forest. Her name was Greta. So she's spending lots of time in the forest, enjoying the animals, enjoying the plants. One morning, things weren't quite as they should be. Greta stepped out into the yard, and there, huddled together in the shadows of the trees, were all the animals of the forest. A soft, silvery brown wolf stepped forward, with his tail low to the ground. Please help us, he whispered. The forest is broken, and we don't know where to go. The giants are ruining our home. So animals can't speak for themselves, so it's up to humans to help speak for the animals and protect them. And that's what Greta wants to do. The giants had always been there, for as long as Greta could remember, but now they were worse than ever. They were huge, lumbering oafs, and they were always busy. There they go. They don't really seem to have a care for the woods, do they? They're stomping through, they're not paying attention to the animals or the trees. They chop down trees to build homes. Then they chop down more trees and build bigger homes. The houses grew into towns, and the towns grew into cities. They built factories and shops and cars and planes. They worked all day and all night, until eventually, and look at that. Look at the pollution and the smog coming from those cities that they've built up. There was hardly any forest left. So this was once a great green, beautiful space, full of animals and life, and now it's smoggy. You can't even see the skies. Lots of cars on the road. But the greedy giants had forgotten how wonderful the forest was. They didn't see all the little birds and bugs and butterflies and bears that trembled in the shadows. And no one told them to stop because everyone was scared of them. Everyone, except Greta. Will you help us? Asked the wolf. Greta looked around her. The animals looked tired and sad. She had to help them. But how? And that can be the biggest problem, is you can see that there's a problem, but you're not sure how to act and how to solve that problem. Then Greta had an idea. So she went deep into the heart of the woods where it was quiet and she could really think and problem solve. The next morning, Greta went to the middle of the forest and waited for the giants to come. She stood alone, holding a big sign. The sign said, stop. She waited and waited, and you can notice the animals are waiting, and there's 2 children there waiting as well. On the first day, the giants didn't see her and lumbered on by, and on the second day and third too. But on the 4th day, something strange happened. A little boy who had been watching Greta made a sign and came and sat down next to her. He didn't say much, but Greta knew he felt like she did. And his sign says, listen. And sometimes we feel a lot more brave when even one more person stands with us. Soon more people and animals saw what they were doing and joined in too. Save our forests! Help! We love our trees. Who will help? Our home is on fire. So it only started with one, and now it's bringing in all these people to join the same cause, people that think the same way Greta does. Before long, a huge crowd filled the forest, stretching out to the city and the roads beyond. They stood together and waited. Now, when it was just Greta, the giants didn't notice, but now that there's a large group of people and animals, the giants are taking notice, aren't they? The crowd was so huge that the giants stopped in their tracks. "Please stop," Greta cried. "Your greedy behavior is spoiling our home. You've broken the trees and trampled the flowers, and now the bees and birds have flown away. These animals are homeless, and our forest is dying." After Greta had spoken, everything was silent. But then, everyone in the crowd began to shout, "The smoke from your fires is choking the air, and please stop cutting down trees. You can help save the planet and plant new trees and mend my home. We need change. We need to take care of our forest and live together. Will you please try?" they all said. And what do you notice is happening to the giants? In all the pages before, they towered over even the largest buildings, and look at them now. I wonder if they're starting to feel ashamed of how poorly they've treated the earth and realize that they've made some mistakes. The giants shuffled and fidgeted and stomped their feet on the ground. They were embarrassed and a little bit sad. You see, the giants were so busy building, they didn't see what they were doing to the forest or the animals who lived there. The giants felt terrible. "We're sorry," they said, and they promised to try harder. So from that day on, the greedy giants weren't so greedy. They slowed down and learned to sit quietly. They stopped working all the time and instead took up new hobbies. They stopped chopping down trees and learned all about gardening and living in the forest. They cooked, prepared, tidied, and shared, and before long, the forest became more beautiful than they could have ever imagined. And you can see that the city is reclaiming the city there. The forest is reclaiming the city, and there's beautiful trees growing on tops of the buildings, and the forest where once it was trampled down is coming back. The giants are enjoying nature more. Now, this was a great fictional story, and it does have a happy ending, but there is a note from the author. This story was inspired by a real girl called Greta Thunburg. When Greta was not much older than you, she found out about something called climate change. This means the world is getting hotter and hotter, and this is causing a lot of damage. Scientists all agree that this rising temperature is down to human activity. So the earth is getting hotter and hotter, and it's because of how humans are treating the earth. When we burn coal, oil, and gas, which are called fossil fuels, something called carbon dioxide is released into the air, and this makes the world warm up. The polar ice is melting and the sea levels are rising. Forests are being chopped down and animals are left homeless. The earth is already 1 degree Celsius hotter than it used to be. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but it really has a negative impact, especially for people who are living close to the coastline. This has caused worse wildfires, storms, droughts, and floods, and more than 1 million people living near the coast have been forced to leave their homes. If we carry on as we are, things will only get worse. Climate change is the biggest crisis humans have ever faced, and we know living in Kamloops that we've seen quite a few more forest fires than ever before. There were rarely any when I was a child, and now there have been quite a few year after year, and this is due to climate change. Greta knew all of this, and she couldn't understand why no one was doing anything about it. So when she was 15, she went on strike from school, sitting outside the Swedish government building and holding a sign that said, "Strike for Climate." Over time, people stopped to join her, And now her protest has encouraged children and adults from all over the world to stand up for climate change too. Greta has spoken to politicians from many different countries, and in 2019 she was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. The story you've just read has a happy ending, but in the real world, Greta is still fighting the giants. They might not be as easy to see as they are in this book, but they are there, and some of the giants don't want to change their ways. That's why Greta needs your help. You might think that you're too little, but Greta says no one is too small to make a difference. So, the giants in this story are industry, and they're people and big companies who take and take and take and take from the earth. And we need the things, and we're used to having the things that they make, but they're not repairing the damage that they're doing. So Greta wants everyone to raise their voice and tell local governments, who will tell national governments, who can tell the world that we need to change what we're doing so the earth is here for the next generation. Thanks for listening. I hope this gives you something more to think about. We'll talk to you next time.